the camera.
Okay, I'm Andrew Fast, and I'm a scribbling retard. I love to draw things by Bob Ross.
Talk a little bit about your Army background, where you're from.
Alright, so I was in the Army, I was in Ranger Regiment, and I would believe that that's the primary basis for this case. Or like he's overtrained and he has all this PTSD, and we're making motions to exclude PTSD, so that's non-trial based, whatever.
But still, it has come up.
They're going to try to say, yeah, they're going to try, but none of them are doctors, and it's happened before where a bunch of, you know what I mean? It's just they try to say that, oh, he was having PTSD. It's like, well, are they doctors? Well, no, but it's like, you can't justify an overreaction just because.
And what are you being charged with?
Assault one.
Assault one. Okay.
Assault one with a lack of remorse.
Lack of remorse. That's something we're going to touch on. We're going to touch on that. So if you can give me the basics of what happened for our audience so they know what's going on.
Okay, well, there was a fight about a year ago. The guy attacked me on a beach, and how we got there, whatever, that's all subject for, you know, a long story. But he attacked me, and I defended myself. And as he attacked me and was punching me, I managed to flip him over and gain a ground game advantage, and then choked him out. Now, because of the chokeout, I am being charged with.
But the very important point that we want to state is that you were charged first and therefore attacked first. He threw the first punch. He came at you first.
Right. Most certainly, yeah. I thought I was losing the fight at first, to be honest, because I've been like, had this like 3-second pause of what I'm going to do, and I was taking hits, but I was in tight with the boxer or whatever. I had a hold of his, his lapel. And so I was defending myself, and then it was, at every turn in the fight, I did what I felt was necessary, and I didn't
defend yourself and your life.
And I didn't use excessive force.
Yeah.
You know, they have medical records that show that, and that'll come out in the trial.
Okay.
So that's, you know, I mean, that's not here nor there because they're charging it anyways.
Yes. And what are you looking at as a potential sentence for assault one?
Something like 96 months. Which translates to roughly 8 years.
8 years for a fist fight.
8 years for a fist fight. That's correct.
Utterly ridiculous.
8 years
the
for
stupidest thing I've ever.
8 years for a fist fight where I didn't throw a single punch.
Yeah. Not only that, you were simply defending yourself. And guys, this is why we're going to talk about the emasculation of America, and that's why this is a big, big, big component of this kind of stuff. The government doesn't want us to defend ourselves. They want you to call the man. They want you to just call the police about some shit when you could be dead by that time. You could get killed in that time. That motherfucker could have killed you.
And his 3 friends, there's nothing the police would have been able to do.
Exactly.
I had to end right then and there. There's no calling the police. Once it was done, I already had my tools. After that, it was great.
Right.
The police were not needed.
Yeah. So what we're looking at is the potential prosecution. So we're looking at wasting taxpayer dollars for prosecuting a crime that it's not even a crime. It was self-defense. This is barely a schoolyard brawl. Barely.
Barely, if that. This is new duty prosecuting at its best.
Yeah.
This prosecutor should be using his WSBA to prosecute pedophiles.
Yeah.
And I have seen pedophiles going before me.
Yeah.
And he's handing them easier, lighter bails and working with them. Working with them. And they're in your neighborhood, folks.
And how did you, let's go back for a second. When you got pulled over by the police, you were driving on a motorcycle, you had no idea what was happening, you got transferred 3 different counties before you even knew what the charge was.
Right, I was traveling south on I-5 and I was heading into Seattle, Maine to do a contract, which I ended up leaving that contractor hanging, almost got fired for, but I was in jail in Whidbey Island for 3 days. And I got transferred through 3 different counties before I figured out I even had the first idea. It wasn't until I was able to put a kite out and ask them what my charges were that they explained the charges, and I was able to kind of put 2 and 2 together because I still was in disbelief that it would be this guy.
And I want to go back. This man is not a criminal. He was simply defending himself, and that's something that that's a very important point that we want to make sure that we touch on. This man was going to work. He was going to do a contracting job. He was pulled over by the police. The police didn't really want to arrest you, but because it was a felony stop.
Yeah, the warrant was filled out a year to the almost to the day outside of their statute of limitations.
Yeah.
And so it was a strange warrant, and the guy didn't even want. He really didn't want to have to arrest me. You know,
But he did, because it's protocol, so he had to do what he had to do. When a cop stops you, especially if it's a felony warrant, they have to arrest. It's just, it is what it is. But going back to that, this is a massive, massive, massive waste of taxpayer money. It's a waste of police time, it's a waste of taxpayer money. They're basically dealing with a butthurt plaintiff that is coming out here and pressing charges over some bullshit and a butthurt ego. That's the dumbest shit I've ever heard in my entire life, man.
But what makes it possible is the laws that we have here in Washington.
Exactly.
And the fact that they want you to call the man, the fact that they want all these things, they don't want you to take care of yourself. So if you do, they're going to try to prosecute it. Because to them, you know what it looks like? It looks like an easy win.
Yeah.
It looks like a chance to make their career better.
And they're railroading the shit out of him with this trial.
Not just me, everybody.
Yeah.
They're doing a lot of people like this. I've seen it where there was, we have a zero tolerance law for domestic violence.
That's a good one, yeah.
We have zero tolerance, and it sounds good on paper. It sounds good. It sounds good on when you're campaigning for it and you want bill number whatever to
But in
pass.
practice, how many people have we met in tanks that have DV and their girlfriend was attacking them and they tried to pull them off?
Let me put the worst case scenario that I've ever seen out there.
No.
Okay, I was in a trial tank, and it was for same thing, domestic violence, whatever, been locked out of my house, there's a whole, and I was acquitted of all that, right? So there's a whole trial that they wasted money on, and just overreacted and used SWAT.
Wasting our taxpayer money, Mike.
Solely based on my ranger training and my supposed special guy, whatever. Dude, I'm like a regular airborne guy who fights until I'm dead. Like, I'm just a little bit more high speed than the regular airborne guy. That's it. That's about it. I don't speak an extra language. I don't know anything like Special Forces does. I'm just a little bit fucking harder than the regular airborne dude. That's what gets you in Ranger Regiment. That's all it is. It's an airborne unit. And so they act like it's some big crazy deal where somehow you're handed this magical gift to just kill everybody. And you're not, and you don't. You only have the ability to like limit one dude at a time and hope your dudes fucking get there to fucking back you up. If not, you're gonna lose.
So the point that we're trying to highlight is he's not Rambo. He's just a military vet that's being...
Right, so I'm not, there's no such thing as magical tactical.
Yeah.
My original point is this: because I'm going to a trial, because SWAT decided to overreact, and because I am in the state of Washington, I did see this. There was a mental, they were presenting for early signs of dementia and Alzheimer's, a couple. They must have shared some life habit that was the same that resulted in them having Alzheimer's or dementia. Well, the female in the relationship, his wife, claimed that she woke up in the middle of the night and there was somebody there raping her, blah, 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 whatever, or feeling her, or whatever. She didn't recognize him and she freaked out or whatever. Called the police on him. It's a common thing in Alzheimer's dementia. And most of the time they have care providers and have a staff that is able to tell police the difference. Now in this case, since it's early onset, there was none of that in place. There was no providers.
There's no caregiver
there was
to
no
give
caregivers. There was none of
information.
that. So this dude was literally facing trial for like home invasion for sleeping in his own bed. I think that was what they charged him with, sleeping in his own bed. And
with his wife.
With his wife, and it was, since it was a domestic violence zero tolerance policy, they were mandated to prosecute it. And he ended up taking a deal because he was too scared to go to trial.
Now you see, and this is what we call assembly line justice, where the state of Washington comes in and prosecutes people to improve their trial records, improve the prosecution record, and that's all they care about. They don't care about justice. They don't care about enforcing the law. If you're going to prosecute a man for sleeping in his own bed with his wife who has dementia, early onset, with no information, you don't bother investigating and try to find out what's going on, you're a piece of shit. So
you need to think your prosecutional fucking career. You need to think about what your bar is really worth.
And there's an accountability issue here. There's an accountability and an integrity issue with this assembly line justice. You know, it's prosecute, 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 put people in jail. And that's costing us even more money. These people should not be behind bars. These people should not, I don't know if you guys know how much a trial actually costs. When we do our first episode of Cold Front, we'll talk about the statistics and how much it actually costs to run a trial.
$74,000.
Oh, there you go. That's our money, our taxpayer money. Prosecuting people who should not be prosecuted in the first place. Not only that, so you're not even just looking at it from an individual perspective. My man Fast here is looking at 8 years for some bullshit, okay? This isn't even just about that. You're costing the state money, and when you're costing the state money, you're costing us money. What happened to We Run America? I don't see that anymore, do you? No, the man runs America.
I see people who are concerned about their careers.
Yeah.
I see people who are only worried about whether they can win a case or not, whether they believe in the case or not. And I see people who are giving, I don't know what is in the state, but they're giving these like criminals who have drug backgrounds, which create criminal behavior, they're just giving them all sorts of breaks left and right. Like, I couldn't believe the low bails they asked for.
And what did they ask for your bail?
$50,000.
50 thou for a schoolyard brawl.
And there was some serious stuff that like was like robbery and got only 25,000, 20,000. I've got $2,000 sitting around that I can shake up.
Yeah.
Call me crazy. You know what I mean? But 50,000?
You're railroading the working man. You're not railroading some, high profile, white collar criminal.
I'm only here because it was personal recognizance, $0 that I was released on. $0. By the judge, by a judge. So
not the prosecutor. So what we're looking at is the judge isn't the problem. It's the prosecution that's the problem. They want to make their careers, and they're railroading people and pushing them into making deals. You said that old guy who slept in his own bed with the wife with dementia, he took a deal. How long did he end up doing?
A couple years at least.
A couple years for some bullshit. Now, why is that? Because some prosecutor needed to improve his percentage.
I really
bump his numbers, and you gonna make this motherfucker do 2 years?
I hope on appeal he made it, man.
Yeah, well, this justice system sometimes don't work like that, and it's because of these people that need to make good careers. Now, I understand that. I'm all about making my career. I'm all about improving my lot in life, but not at the expense of hurting other people. If you are an officer of the court, you are supposed to enforce justice. You are supposed to push that. That is what you're supposed to care about, not improving your numbers so you can win a campaign. That's bullshit. Laws like the mandated arrests for domestic violence are bullshit, man. They look good on paper, they look good to voters, but they don't actually work.
What support is the state giving to those people that they're bringing these domestic violence? They're bringing a social worker in who's like, if you divorce him and you do this and you do that, then you're eligible for all this money.
So they provide fucking incentives to divorce someone.
They incentivize the whole process of leaving. Now, in some cases, it's absolutely necessary.
Exactly. Now look, if there's a boyfriend or a husband that's beating the shit out of his wife on the regular, I'm glad he's being prosecuted. But you can't, it's not a one-size-fit-all. What happened to looking at each case-by-case basis? Why don't we have that shit anymore? Because we have parents, and we have these liberal groups that are up in arms about things like this, but they're not really looking at things on a case-by-case basis. All they see is oppression. All they see is, I'm getting fucked over. These motherfuckers have an entitlement mentality, and they just don't know how to deal with it. If you're entitled, are you entitled to my money? You entitled to putting other people behind bars? That's the liberal mentality of things. So, what are you looking at if you get out of this? What are you gonna do? You're definitely not taking a deal, right?
If I'm acquitted, no, I'm definitely not taking a deal,
Yeah.
because that's not why I went overseas to fight for our rights. I fought for my right to be able to stand this goddamn trial.
Yeah.
Okay? So, I'm not taking a fucking deal. There's no deal on the table. And I've already told my attorney that early on. I'm sure she's voiced that to prosecution. The closest they may have been able to come up with was they called it assault 2. And that's if I pull, like assault 2 was up to and including like pulling a weapon on somebody that is capable of firing a round. So it has to have a firing pin and under legal terminology and all this other bullshit. And for them to be in believable fear that they actually had a round in it.
Even though, let's not forget, this man attacked him first. This was a simple case of self-defense.
That's assault 2. If I pull a gun on someone, that's assault 2. That was the plea they gave me.
Okay, you know what I want to talk about? I want to highlight the lack of remorse issue. The lack of remorse. So here's the thing. If you get busted and you have self-defense, you're defending yourself, right? But because my man Fast is, of course, not remorseful about defending himself, they are going above and beyond and charging him outside the guidelines. There's going to be extra time involved because of quote-unquote lack of remorse.
A lack of remorse enhancement allows them to charge outside of the regular range. So
Now, let me ask you something.
You were not remorseful, so you were being charged outside the regular range. So if I was not remorseful, in the worst case scenario, if they charged me with someone and I was found guilty of that, and I was found guilty of lack of remorse, then they could charge me outside the range of 96 months if they so chose.
Yeah, and why the fuck would you be remorseful about defending yourself for some motherfucker who attacked you first? That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
Better question is, how do we have that kind of law in Washington?
Exactly. And not only that, think about it. If he has quote-unquote remorse, then suddenly he's pleading guilty. A prosecutor can look at that and be like, oh look, he's remorseful. He must be guilty because he's remorseful. It's a catch-22. What the fuck is that?
Yeah, what the fuck is that? You know what I'm saying? And so, with the whole remorse thing, okay, all right, it's a general charge. So we have, all right, I'm back on it, all right. So what allows that to be possible? What allows them to add a special enhancement that says lack of remorse, or a special enhancement that says any number of things? Well, it's our revised code of Washington.
And that's, if you've
R.C.W.
seen the abbreviation, R.C.W. codes.
It means Revised Code of Washington. And what that means is they can add and change the wording of the law as they see fit in order to basically over-prosecute.
Yeah, and that's bullshit, okay? The law is the law. You can't enforce more than that. Now, we see school shooters and things like that who go to trial, and I've seen this, and you'll see them wearing shirts like killer, or they'll be flipping motherfuckers off, flipping off the victims' families. That's wrong. But even then, the law is the law. You go by the guidelines, you go by what the judge said. You cannot rewrite the law just because you decided to. It doesn't work like that. This lack of remorse is a component of that.
Yeah, lack of remorse just allows them, it's like a manufacturing charge that allows them to charge as much as they want. They can charge as much as they want after that because they found it.
Yeah.
And in any domestic violence situation, they throw in, and this is the primary cause for mine, the gun enhancement, because I always carried, and I believe in personal defense. So that was the primary motivator for going. For the first time I was even rolled up by SWAT. He's armed, he's trained, he's blah, 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 he's going through PTSD. Those were all things that they said for the reasons that they're rolling me up. All things that we're not allowed to say at the trial, because they're not doctors, they're not whatever. And I was talking to them clearly and reasonably.
Yeah.
So it was just...
Does this seem like an unreasonable man? No.
You know, the viewers aren't there with me at the time with the SWAT team, you know. So they're not privy to the levels of stress that can go on when the police build up. But as the police buildup was occurring, as the first responding officers were getting there, I was on the phone with them, I was reasonable, and what came out in that trial was that 1 in 10 of those hostage negotiation calls resulted in a fatality, yet none of those calls were recorded or transcribed. And so where is the accountability of the hostage negotiator? What exactly did he say to that person? What exactly are our policies in regards to this? And how does that prevent kill-seeking behavior when the hostage, you know what I mean? That's a problem. We've seen that in Army units across in Afghanistan. Regular Army units are going through and doing kill-seeking teams. We've seen it out of Fort Lewis, our own fucking fort, for 2nd Infantry Division. They were fucking dudes went to fucking trial for setting up murder scenarios to kill unarmed civilians. Okay? If you don't think that's in our police force, it's a lack of training that allows that to be there. It's a lack of oversight that allows that to be there. It's a lack of having a high-speed, low-tolerance environment around you that allows that to be there. If you think that it takes more than 110 GT square feet of police officer, you're wrong. It's not. There are great police officers out there. There are some that are very smart. There are not those who are not, and they are looking for the adventure. They want to get kills. They want to do whatever that's immature.
They want to be a badass like they see in the movies.
Like they see in the movies. Third Watch is who rolled me up. And Third Watch is the one that's known for stopping criminals, so they have like the heroes. They're more prone to having the hero syndrome. That's who responded initially. And they responded with an M4, and they were facing the wrong direction. They were facing the wrong direction. I could have, if I chose to dance. They were within range of the firepower I had available. If they chose to dance, a number of them would have been wounded before I went down. I don't know, because you don't know how a firefight works out. You know what I'm saying? You just don't know those things. But I had to fucking jump on them. That's not a good thing. You know what I mean? And the
So
fact that they
the
were
point you're
coming
trying to
up,
highlight is lack of training.
they come up in an infantry, whatever, and they're pulling security on my apartment, which only has my family and my grandpa in there. My daughter, my wife, now ex-wife, and grandpa in that apartment. That's the only thing they're pulling security on. They would have been broadsided. I would have had, they would have been, I'd probably be dead, but they would have been broadsided. And it would have been, if I had decided to act in any other way or act as they had claimed in the first trial, it would have been an entirely different story. I'll tell you that much. So, it is what it is, and the state will prosecute you for defending yourself. They will prosecute you for almost anything if they can.
And that's really what we want to highlight with this interview, the not only emasculation of America in general and men in general, but the massive waste of taxpayer dollars and resources, the inconvenience and possible life-changing factors of locking people up who aren't really guilty. And really, just the point is, you can't defend yourself in this country anymore. Liberals are already trying to take our guns. You know, people want to say, don't defend yourself, just call the man, but what if the man decides to lock you up instead? How do you know? They're saying things like, oh, well, why didn't you call the cops fast? Why didn't you do this? Da, 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 da. He already had all this shit. He didn't need to call them. Why waste the police time and resources to go do what? Press charges? Not everybody needs to press charges. Not everybody gets egotistical and butthurt about shit. But some people do, and that's why we're dealing with this kind of shit. It is that mindset, that entitled emasculation that we're dealing with right now. Back in the day, I mean, a bar brawl might get you, what, a night in the slammer? Maybe. Cops let you out the next morning. Hey, my bad, man, I was wasted as fuck. You know, let me shake hands, be done with it. Where the old days at? You know, this is ridiculous.
I don't know, man. I don't know. I can only quote Tyler Durden from this point. A generation of men raised by women, or to make it more politically correct for our current day and age, where anything's possible, by people with a women's mindset.
And we don't want to, we're not saying that there aren't tough gals out there, because I mean,
Because there's plenty of welders.
oh yeah, no, I know,
tough.
I'll see kick some ass, man. There's some girls that will fuck us up. But that's not what we're looking at here. We're looking at effeminate motherfuckers that tell you not to defend yourself when you're getting the shit kicked out of you and just to lay down and take it. Nah, we don't do that. We don't play that shit.
No, you stand up for yourself.
You stand tall.
Man or woman. You stand man, woman, or
exactly.
Whatever. You stand up for yourself.
Yeah, and so that's the point we're trying to make here, okay? I'm sure some liberals going to watch this and say, oh, they're sexist, oh, they're saying it's men raised by women. No, we're trying to say that it's effeminate people that are telling you to not stand tall. My mom's told me when I was a kid, she told me that if I didn't stand tall and defend myself, not to come home. She told me straight up, don't come home if you don't defend yourself.
Well, okay, so for those defend people who wish to defend themselves, I will say this. There was a story in the news, and a dude had taken his personal security into his own responsibility. Now he was what we would all call, from my old unit, like we would all call him a leftist, a weakling, whatever, you know what I mean? That's not his life choices. It doesn't have to be. And that's why rough men go out there. We can do that, so they can do that. But he had taken his own personal security into his hands, and he had decided to carry pepper spray and stopped an active shooter with his pepper spray, and then physically subdued him and got the firearm away from him, and able to create a crowd, enough to create a crowd response to subdue the guy in general.
Yeah.
Okay, when you take responsibility for your personal security, that's my point.
Yeah.
You know, you need to do whatever level or means you find appropriate. Look, you're against guns, whatever, carry pepper spray. It's great, it marks the fucking attacker. It marks the fucking whoever it was that you were defending yourself from. You know what I mean? Not only helps your case in the court of law, but it also helps you survive the initial physics law, man. Are you going to live through this?
Yeah.
Do you want to be right in the court of physics, or do you want to be right in the court of law? Initially, you need to be right in the court of physics.
Yeah.
Okay?
Because if you're not, you'll be dead and you can't defend yourself either way.
Exactly. You need to first survive the situation. Whether or not you disagree with guns, whether or not, whatever. This man, he obviously disagreed with guns. He voiced it on the news. But I had respect for him. And you know why? Because he took his personal security and his personal responsibility. He took responsibility for it. He carried a pepper spray and he stopped an active shooter on a college campus.
Yeah. And where
That was
is
here in
that?
Washington.
Where is that accountability? Where is that personal security? Where is that personal responsibility? We have lost that as a country. We have lost that as a generation. My generation, the millennials and Generation Z, are so fucking entitled. These days in high schools, man, you know, you get suspended just for defending yourself, and I know because I lived through that. Getting expelled and suspended just over, you know, dealing with somebody that's trying to beat your ass, 2-3 guys trying to beat you up, and you defend yourself, you get suspended or even expelled for that shit. And this is what we're raising. These are the children that we're bringing into the adulthood. This is why people don't want to work. This is why people just want to sit around and take money from people, because they're entitled, because they've never had to defend themselves. They've never had that personal
The
responsibility.
system takes care of them, and the system incentivizes it.
Yeah, more government is what liberals want, because they want to be taken care of without really working for things. They want to take money away from people that they didn't actually earn. And this is what that system is creating. I know I'm highlighting a lot of different points here that isn't totally related to this, but I see the connections.
We don't want to lump
between
everybody to
all
like
these.
liberal, because there are people out there that are liberal and they're not interested in seeing taxpayer dollars wasted.
True,
So
true.
let's not lump everybody into the same group.
Definitely not, and that's what a lot of people do with conservatives, so we don't want to do the same thing, but I'm simply pointing out that the stereotypical mindset of a liberal that you see is taking shit away from
Pretty
other people.
entitled and to a.
I'm just saying, that's a stereotype, and that's what I tend to see. I call them like I see them.
You know, and to a degree, I mean, it's kind of, I mean, how else would we have this problem that we're having now?
Exactly.
You know what I mean? It's people who are sticking their nose in business. It's really not theirs, way too far into certain things.
Mm-hmm.
And they should be taking care of other problems that they're making breaks for. And I'm not sure why. It's out of progressivism or something like that. They're giving a lot of breaks to people who are meth heads and things like that. Oh, well, you were on drugs, well, you did that crime. Go to drug court. Oh, well, you were on this, go to that. Okay, well, oh, you're a pedophile, well, are you da-da-da? Well then, all right, here's your quick break, get like a quick slap, and you gotta do like 3 months in jail.
Yeah.
And you know
They're
what I mean?
letting these guys off, but for defending yourself, you're looking at 8 years.
8 years. 8 years for defending myself. And there are pedophiles out there that should be prosecuting that had their cases. It seems to be a game with this prosecutor, I'm not sure, but he calls me last on all our dockets. Even though my last name is Fast, and if there's any kind of alphabetical order to it, it's a giant middle finger to me. But that's courtroom decorum. It's his way of telling me, fuck you. You know what I mean? And he's gonna do it in his subtle ways. He's not gonna openly tell me, fuck you.
That's another thing that we're looking at. Everybody's playing the game these days. Everybody is doing things subtly. You know, there's no more coming out and just calling people out. There's no more standing up for yourself. There's just subtle manipulation of things. People don't stand up for themselves, like this prosecutor is doing, you know, that. You know, he's subtly highlighting things and doing that instead of, you know, telling you to go fuck yourself.
Yeah, he's leaving me on the last on the docket, wasting my whole day, making me catch the rush hour traffic ferry. It's definitely a direct middle finger.
Yeah.
So it's just, I just can't, and these pedophiles and these meth dealers, and they all come before me. And I get to see the myriad of cases that he should be prosecuting, that he is not.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like, you know, I mean, that's kind of on him. Like, I'm a witness. You know, when I die, what am I going to tell? Oh, this dude fucking was giving breaks to fucking pedophiles, bro. I don't know. I think he should only enter Valhalla as a servant, the uniform being his sun-bleached skull serving freaking meat to our guests. That's the only thing I'm going to be able to speak for him.
Yeah.
But that's something he's going to have to tell whatever power he believes in the afterlife. He's going to have to say, I decided.
Only cared about my career.
I only cared about my career. I decided to prosecute people who are defending themselves legitimately instead of pedophiles and known meth dealers who were pleading guilty. I decided to prosecute him to the fullest extent instead of them, and I gave them breaks. He's going to have to tell his higher power that. And I'm not sure what it is, but it seems to be a trend here in Washington. And I'm not sure what the training process is for that, but it is sure creating an outcome of this.
Yeah. So with that, we're going to end this interview fast. Thank you so much for coming on the show with us.
Yeah, likewise.
This is Cold Front. I expect you to see us here for your next episode.
All right, until then, hang tight.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens with this trial.